The forest around Coldwater wasn't just trees. It was a wall that breathed. In the daylight, it looked ordinary. Maples and black pines, fern-choked gullies, the half-rotted skeletons of old logging roads. But at night, the line of trunks at the edge of town felt like a row of tall, patient listeners. Every 30 years, the old men at the diner said, the woods remembered something and woke up. They called it the Watcher. No one told that story straight. Some blamed a vanished ranger who went native and never came back. Others spoke of a storm that felled a fire tower and left something up there staring down at the lights of town, learning their names. There were years with missing campers, hunters found sitting in the moss with empty eyes, trails that migrated like animals. Sheriff's reports said hypothermia, disorientation, bear sign. The locals lowered their voices and said other things. Stories bring cameras now. 4 friends, Anna, David, Michael, and Chloe, arrived with their backpacks and mics and comfortable on-camera banter, hoping for 1 million views and a title that would trend. They filmed the diner, the Welcome to Coldwater sign with a bullet chip in the O, the wall of flyers for lost dogs and pancake breakfasts. They found the ranger station shuttered and posted with federal notices, the kind that treat curiosity as a crime. They filmed that too. At sunset, Coldwater turned its porch lights on one by one, little warm circles that pushed at the dark but didn't dent it. The group parked at the trailhead, shouldered their gear, and stepped under the trees. The air changed. It went still, thick with sap and a sweetness that might have been rot. Behind them, the highway noise thinned to a thread, and then to nothing. In the last light, as they rounded a bend, Anna looked up and saw a mark cut into the smooth skin of a beech. A circle with an eye inside. Not sketched in marker, carved. The gouged lines were gray at the edges and pale at the center, as if they'd been made recently and then aged all at once. Foreshadowing, Michael joked, lifting the camera for a close-up. The mark didn't look back, but Anna had the odd sense of being counted. By full dark, they had a fire going in a little ring of stones, and their tent staked on a patch of ground that looked less rooty than the rest. The stars showed through a ragged opening in the canopy. Somewhere off to their left, water moved, slow, secret, repeating itself. They ate. They shot a quick intro. They laughed too loud and too often. When they finally quieted, the forest did not fill the silence. It just waited. The sound came near midnight, not a crack or a roar. A soft, measured tap, like knuckles across wood, traveling from trunk to trunk. It echoed in a way that felt deliberate, heading out in a wide circle and coming back in again. The fire shrank to coals. The air chilled. The light between the trees thinned and deepened in the same breath, as if the darkness had 2 layers and both were moving. Chloe raised her head from her sleeping bag, eyes big in the glow. "Do you hear that?" "Woodpecker," David said, but he didn't sound sure. Anna, lying on her back, watched their patch of sky. A cloud slid over the stars, stopped, and stayed. She listened to the tapping go around and away and come near again, and then, very faintly, to her name spoken in her father's voice. She sat up. The others were already awake. The knock came once more. Then they slept afterward, in the way you sleep after checking the locks 3 times. The fire went to ash. The tapping stopped. The cloud moved on. And in the last hour before dawn, when the cold gets petty, the trees creaked in a wind that wasn't there, and the eye cut into the beach seemed a shade deeper than it had been. The woods had noticed them, and the woods remember. Morning made everything simple again. Birds argued. Sun ropes came down through the leaves in clean columns and warmed the tarp Anna had rigged. The coffee tasted like it had been strained through bark, which in a sense it had. They were themselves again. Anna with her lists and her quiet smile. David doing gear checks like a ritual. Michael chasing B-roll that looked like stock footage, but felt safe. Chloe making a map that would end up in the video's thumbnail. "Okay," Anna said, tapping her notebook with a pencil. "Trail plan. We take the fire road to the ridge cut, swing past the old tower site, then loop south spur back. 6 miles. Plenty of daylight." "Any more spooky eyes?" Michael asked, grinning into the lens. Anna didn't answer. She had already seen 2 more, one on a hemlock, one on a pine right at knee height, as if something shorter had done the carving. Same circle, same iris slit. They doused the last of the fire, cleaned up, recorded a cheery day 1 segment, and headed out. The trail down from camp was a brown ribbon through green, damp enough to keep the dust down, slick enough to make you watch your steps. They walked with the kind of confidence that belongs to people who have never been truly lost. An hour in, they found the first oddity, a neat pile of stones in a hollow at the base of a birch. 9 smooth rocks, egg-sized, stacked 3, 3, 3. No cairn anywhere else on the trail. No scuff marks, as if the builder had fumbled. Just the stack, balanced precisely in a place no one would see unless they were looking. Chloe photographed it and left it alone. "Art installation," Michael said. "It's a nest," David said. "Or a game. Or a warning," Anna said, and immediately wished she hadn't. The ridge cut, climbed steadily, and paid them back with a view. Trees to the horizon, the suggestion of a lake to the west, the fire tower's legs like the last bones of a dead giant poking up through the canopy, far to the north. The tower itself had fallen decades ago. The steel ladder still tried to get to nothing. They ate on a rock and felt better. On the way down from the ridge, the forest changed register. The trees grew older and the understory thinner. The trailbed hardened from loam to something like packed ash. The wind went away. A new sound arrived, a soft, rapid clicking, like fingernails drumming a tabletop. It moved in a line, parallel to theirs, sometimes close, sometimes a dozen paces off. When they stopped, it stopped. They came to an intersection the map didn't have. The wooden sign had rotted to a suggestion of letters. A path veered off right into a stand of pines, so straight and even they looked planted. The air there had a smell like iron after rain. "Maine," Anna said, pointing left. "We stay Maine." She had to say it twice. All three of the others had begun to angle toward the pines without discussion, as if the idea had been theirs alone. They corrected course, laughing at themselves. And a tension they hadn't felt settled across their shoulders like a cool hand. By mid-afternoon, they reached the site. The fire tower had fallen like a drunk asleep at the table. 2 legs snapped, 2 intact. The lattices twisted into a bent ladder that started at the ferns and climbed a dozen feet into nothing. A 4-stone foundation remained where the cab had once stood. The concrete was scored with knives and coins and stubbornness. Names, dates, a few old phone numbers with area codes that no longer lived anywhere. The eye was here too, carved into the concrete at thigh height. This one was older. Lichen softened the edges. A crack had split the iris. A fault line through the pupil. "Great place for the history segment," Michael said. "Anna, want to do the thing?" Anna did the thing. She talked about CCC towers and early forest management, and how fire lookouts used to live in boxes on stilts with a book, a stove, and a map for company. She talked about the storm that broke this one and the budget that never fixed it. She kept it light. The camera didn't need her fear. Chloe filmed cutaways. The ladder's bent geometry. A lady's slipper orchid tucked under bracken. A strip of police tape snared high in a branch. A bright, unlikely flag from some search years ago. She took a few stills for thumbnails. She put her phone away. She took it out again, frowning. "I've got no bars," she said. "Not even SOS." "Same," Michael said. "Airplane mode forever." "GPS is fine," David said, tapping his handheld. The screen showed a sensible path and a breadcrumb trail that curved like a smile back to camp. He breathed easier. The light changed while they were there. It wasn't just getting later. The sun seemed to catch on the edges of the trees and pull sideways, making the shadows longer than they had a right to be. The air picked up the same iron smell they'd noticed near the planted pines. The clicking returned, now above them, as if someone had climbed into the canopy and was idly drumming on a branch with too many fingers. Okay, Anna said, too brightly. South Spur. Back before dark. They made good time for the first half-mile. The trail was kind, the grade considerate. Then the kind trail intersected a less kind one. A narrow cut, chewed by runoff, deer prints, and boot heels that had been in a hurry. The sign had fallen and was half swallowed by leaves. David checked the GPS. "This is us," he said. "We angle left here." They angled left. The forest accepted the choice. 20 minutes later, the GPS still said they were on the line. The woods disagreed. The ground under their boots had gone from duff to slick, black humus to something that yielded more than it should. The trees skinnied and leaned in. The ferns thinned to wire grass. The sound of water, that had always been just left of their hearing, took one step closer. "Feels like a low spot," Michael said. "Spur shouldn't dip this much." "It's a half-mile to the fire road," David said. "We keep going." They kept going. The half-mile did not arrive. The GPS breadcrumb trail did not look wrong. The forest did. A bird called, 3 notes like a question. The same call answered from behind them, with a delay that didn't make sense. The clicking came and went. Once they heard voices, clean, bright, impossible this far in. Laughter, tumbling like marbles. A dog bark. Someone saying, "You'll miss the turn." "Did you?" Chloe began. "Yes," Anna said. "Don't." They stopped for water. The map app on Chloe's phone showed them a blue dot where no map tiles would load. The compass on David's watch pinned north to a point that wandered. Michael filmed a tree where the bark had peeled in a long oval that looked like a missing mouth. "This is fine," he said to the lens. "We love this. This is atmosphere." He panned left. Something tall stood between 2 trunks, far back in the shade. So thin that for a second it read as a strip of darker bark. It did not move. It had the posture of a person who has been standing a long time, listening. As the camera found it, the focus hunted and clicked and would not settle. "Guys," Michael said, each letter small and careful. "Don't turn quickly. Just look at 11 o'clock. Anna looked. The shape stood there, patient. It was the height of a basketball backboard, and wrong in the way a coat rack is wrong when you forget you don't own a coat rack. The head was a little too small for the body, or the body a little too long for the legs. Its edges softened and sharpened with the flicker of leaves. It didn't have eyes. It had the idea of eyes, a sense of attention weighed into the space where a face would be. Chloe made a sound she hadn't made since she was 9. David lifted his arm as if to wave, and then didn't. The thing, if it was a thing, remained a piece of the forest until it wasn't. The next time a breeze moved the leaves, the shape wasn't there. "Wind," Michael said, voice paper thin. Anna's mouth was dry. "We go," she said. "No discussion. We go." They went. The trail underfoot improved with every step they took away from the place where the shape had stood. For a while, they walked fast enough to sweat. The forest obliged them by being ordinary. They laughed too loudly again. The sky brightened in the way it does when the day is thinking about evening and hasn't made up its mind. They broke into a small clearing ringed by pines. The ground was flat and sandy, as if a creek had once braided through. In the center, someone had built another stack of stones, this time 12, arranged in a low spiral like the start of a snail shell. Around the spiral, in a careful circle, 12 circles with eyes had been carved into the sand with a stick. No footprints led to or from the artwork. Pine needles lay over half the lines, as if it had been here for an hour and 100 years. David crouched and touched the sand. It was cold, colder than the air. By a degree. "Don't film this," Anna said. Michael lowered the camera. The trees beyond the clearing all at once went still. The clicking stopped. A new sound arrived. A low, hollow knock. Not woodpecker, not branch. 3 beats, then 3 again, moving around the ring like a child running a stick along a fence. "Back out," Anna said. "Same steps we came in." They stepped backward, placing their heels where their toes had been, a clumsy mirror of their path. The knocking followed once around the circle and then let them go, as if whoever had been keeping time lost interest. They walked until the air smelled like water again, for normal reasons. The map on David's GPS finally stitched in a piece of road where a piece of road should be. They pushed hard, the last half mile, and arrived in a place that looked like a trail junction at last, with tire ruts and a candy wrapper and a boot print with a brand you could buy online. Everyone's shoulders dropped at once. "See," David said, loud with relief that bordered on anger. "We were never lost." Behind them, 50 yards back through the pines, a faint percussion line resumed. Too soft for the mic, but not for the nerves. Tap, tap, tap. They did not turn around. They followed the ruts toward where the map promised their camp waited, and where the eye carved into the beach would be a story beat instead of a warning. Dusk slid under the trees ahead, drawing a darker line between trunks. The birds argued again, faster this time. The wind returned and brought with it a smell like singed dust, the inside of an old heater when it wakes. Chloe's phone buzzed once with a phantom notification, screen blank. They came around the last bend, into their clearing, and stopped all together. Their tent stood where they'd left it. Their tarp sagged politely. The fire ring waited for fire. On the beach where the first eye had been, there were now 4 eyes, stacked, each with a deeper pupil than the last, as if something had practiced and improved. The kettle sat on the cold stones. It was full of water, that no one had poured, and in the dirt, just inside their camp's edge, a neat circle had been traced, wide enough to stand in, with a single footstep pressed into its center. Not one of theirs. The forest breathed in again. Night had arrived early, or the woods had pulled it closer. The fire hissed when they struck a match, as though the air itself didn't want flame in it. The wood smoldered, reluctant, before finally catching. Smoke climbed, thin and uneasy. They sat around the fire and pretended to eat. Chloe stirred her food, but never lifted it. David checked the GPS every few minutes, though it showed the same small, perfect triangle of path. Michael filmed their faces, Anna's forced calm, Chloe's pale lips, David's jaw working like he was chewing glass. When full dark settled, the woods stopped pretending. The knocking came back. Tap, tap, tap. This time closer, circling the fire. Every few minutes, it shifted farther out, then back in, like something testing distance. "Okay," Michael whispered, aiming his camera toward the sound. "If this is a prank, we'll catch whoever." "Shut up," Anna snapped. The fire sputtered low. The shadows leaned long and thin, and in them something moved. Not animals. Animals shuffled, scampered, breathed. This movement was slower, deliberate, like someone shifting weight from one foot to the other. Then Chloe froze. Her eyes widened, fixed on the tree line. Someone's there. They followed her gaze. Between the trees, just at the edge of firelight, stood a figure. It was tall, too tall, and perfectly still. Not swaying, not shifting, just standing. Its face was swallowed in shadow, but its outline was sharp against the glow. Long arms, shoulders too narrow, legs that seemed to keep going down. "Hello?" David called, though his throat caught halfway through the word. No answer. The fire popped, sparks flying up like frightened birds. When they looked back, nothing. The space between the trees was empty. "Gone," Michael muttered. He turned the camera back toward the dark. How does something that big just... "Shh!" Anna hissed. They listened. Silence. And then, faintly, just beyond the light, footsteps. Soft, heavy, unhurried. They circled once, twice, then stopped directly behind Chloe. She whipped around, flashlight in hand. The beam cut the trees. Empty, but the ground told the truth. A footprint, fresh, pressed deep into the damp earth. Too long. Toes sharp like claws. Her voice cracked. "It's marking us." The compass David held spun once, twice, and froze. Not north, but pointed straight at the footprint. That was when they all heard it. A whisper, soft and wrong, threading through the trees like wind through dead leaves. For one by one, each name spoken in the voice of someone they loved. The night dragged like wet cloth. Every whisper, every footstep beyond the fire pressed closer until their nerves frayed. By dawn, none of them had truly slept, just drifted in and out, jolting awake at the smallest crack of a twig. When the gray light seeped into the clearing, they didn't speak of what they'd heard. They just packed in silence, shoulders stiff, eyes flicking toward the trees, as if expecting the footprints to multiply while they weren't looking. The trail south should have led them back to town. David swore by his GPS, but the forest had other ideas. 2 hours in, the path thickened with undergrowth that hadn't been there the day before. Ferns tangled like barbed wire, branches hung lower, each step resisted. By noon, they stumbled upon something none of their maps showed. A ranger outpost. Pause. Pause. The cabin slouched between the trees, its roof sagging under moss, windows crusted with grime. The porch groaned like a throat clearing when they stepped on it. A faded government seal still clung to the door, half peeled by weather. "This isn't on any chart," David muttered, frowning at his handheld. "Doesn't exist." "Perfect," Michael said, forcing bravado as he raised his camera. "Urban Explorer jackpot." Anna pushed the door. It swung open with a whine, releasing a breath of rot and dust. Inside was shadow, a desk scattered with papers, chairs overturned, a map of the forest tacked to the wall. Someone had scratched a circle into the map over their location, an eye inked in the center. Chloe picked up one of the papers. It wasn't official reports. It was a journal, handwritten. The cover read only, Weaver, 1961. The entries were frantic, letters gouged deep. "It's not an animal. It waits above the tree line. Sometimes it walks between trunks, like it's trying to remember the shape of people. Sometimes it leans close enough that you can hear your name before you even think it." Anna flipped further. Pages filled with sketches, trees bending around a tall figure, eyes carved into bark, circles in the dirt. One drawing showed a human form, with arms stretched downward into roots, a head tipped back as if staring forever at the canopy. "Don't look at it for too long," another entry read. "The Watcher doesn't kill with hands." David opened a filing cabinet. Inside were dozens of journals, each with a year scrawled on the cover. 1930, 1961, 1991, all with the same symbol on the spine, the eye. Anna ran her fingers across them. Every 30 years. The room seemed to lean with them, the weight of every vanished hiker pressing down. Then came the knock. 3 beats, slow, heavy. It came from the ceiling. They all looked up. Dust sifted from the rafters. Something moved above the roof. Something large, pacing slowly, the wood groaning under each step. Chloe's whisper cracked the air. "It's here." The lantern of daylight, through the filthy window, dimmed. Shadows thickened in the corners. And then, between 2 rotten window slats, an eye stared in. Not human, not animal, round, lidless, unblinking. It watched them, and when Anna blinked, they left the outpost before dusk. None of them suggested staying. The journals weighed too much, even unread. They felt like anchors, pulling them into the soil. Chloe kept the one she'd picked up, clutching it tight against her chest, as if it were a shield. The forest grew stranger as the sun lowered. The air thickened, muffling their footsteps. Branches knitted overhead, choking out light until their headlamps cut only small tunnels through the dark. The sound returned, not the gentle tapping now, but heavier, like footsteps. Slow, measured circling. Every time they stopped, the sound paused, then resumed when they moved. But Michael couldn't resist. His camera tilted over his shoulder, and for a moment, the lens caught it. A tall silhouette between the trunks, arms dangling too long, its head bent unnaturally low, as if listening to their breathing. When the light swept past, the shape melted into bark. Michael swore under his breath. "It's following us. It's—" "Don't say it," David hissed. "Don't give it a name." They hurried, but the trail bent back on itself. 10 minutes later, they arrived at the same clearing with the spiral of stones. The circle in the sand was gone. In its place, 4 new footprints. Human. Bare. Each pressed deep into the soil, pointing toward the center. "This isn't possible," Chloe whispered. "We walked away. We left this place." The forest disagreed. The fire David tried to build sputtered, refusing to stay lit. The air itself smothered the flame, as if breathless. Night fell completely, thick and heavy. That was when the voices began. Soft at first. Familiar. Anna heard her father again, calling her name from the trees. Chloe heard her mother's lullaby, sung in a trembling tone. David heard his brother's laugh. Michael froze when the voice of his dead grandmother whispered, "Look up." And he did. The canopy was wrong. The branches were shifting, pulling aside like curtains. Above them, towering high, something leaned down, a shape darker than the night. Its limbs stretched like branches, its torso narrow, its head cocked in unnatural curiosity. 2 hollow eyes glowed faintly, fixed on them. The Watcher. Chloe screamed. The forest swallowed the sound. The figure tilted, bones creaking like old wood. It reached one long limb down, fingertips grazing a pine trunk, and where it touched, the bark peeled away, revealing another carved eye staring back at them. "Dot, run!" Anna shouted. They bolted. The woods erupted, branches snapping, ground shaking as if something immense moved between the trees. Every path twisted back into itself. Every trail ended at walls of roots or circles of stones. Michael panted, dragging the camera against his chest. "It's hurting us." And it was true. The Watcher wasn't chasing. It was guiding, closing paths, turning trails, moving the forest like a maze. Hunting not by speed, but by inevitability. At last, exhausted, they stumbled into a clearing. The moon bled through the branches, pale and sickly. At the center of the clearing stood a massive oak, its bark split open into the shape of a single staring eye. The Watcher waited there, silent, patient, watching. The clearing felt wrong, too round, too perfect, as if the forest had cut out a piece of itself to stage a scene. The oak at the center groaned in the windless night. Its bark split into the shape of an enormous eye. Moonlight pooled unnaturally, every shadow pointing inward. No one spoke at first. They just stared at the tree and at the figure leaning against it, the Watcher. It did not move. Its limbs hung loose, swaying slightly, though the air was still. Its face, or what could be called a face, was a hollow mask of dark, with two pale glimmers where eyes should be. Looking into them was like staring into an abyss that stared back harder. Chloe clutched the journal tighter, as if the frantic handwriting of a dead ranger could protect her. "We can't fight it," she whispered. "No one said anything about fighting," Michael muttered, his voice shaking. "We just keep running." Dot. "Running where?" Anna snapped, spinning on him. "It herds us back every time. Don't you get it? This is the trap." The oak groaned louder, a low sound like a door dragged open. Bark shifted. Faces emerged in the wood, frozen, stretched, mouths half open, as if screaming, but too far gone to make a sound. David's breath hitched. Oh God. The Watcher finally stirred. It raised one elongated arm and pointed. Not at the forest, not at the oak, but at them. One finger, one choice. Chloe's voice broke. "It wants one of us." Silence fell heavy. "No," Anna said firmly. "We don't bargain with it. That's exactly what it wants. That's how this thing survives." Michael shook his head violently, fear scrambling his thoughts. "If it's one life for three, that's math I can live with." Anna rounded on him. "You don't know that. You think it keeps promises? You think it's human enough to—" But David wasn't listening. He was staring at the journal Chloe held, eyes fixed on a page she hadn't noticed yet. Slowly, he reached out and flipped it open. The entry was short, scrawled in frantic lines. "The Watcher does not kill all at once. It feeds in measures. One given willingly saves the rest for a time. Refuse, and it takes everything." Chloe's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the book. No, that can't be true. The Watcher lowered its arm and began to step forward. Each movement bent the clearing, the trees leaning with its weight, the shadows shivering. Michael backed away. "We have to choose." Anna grabbed his arm. "Shut up." But Chloe was already moving. Tears streaked her face as she stepped toward the oak, journal pressed to her chest. "If this is the only way, if it means you live—" "Chloe, don't!" Anna screamed. The Watcher leaned lower, looming over her like a tower. Its hollow gaze pinned her to the earth. She trembled, but stood firm, whispering, "Take me. Just let them go." The forest exhaled, a long sigh of satisfaction. The shadows surged, and then Chloe was gone. Not torn apart, not screaming, just gone. The journal fell to the dirt, its pages fluttering open as if gasping for air. The watcher straightened slowly, the pale glow of its eyes dimming for the first time. Then it turned, stepping back into the trees, melting into the black as though it had never been there. The clearing emptied. The forest seemed to relax. The night felt lighter. Michael dropped to his knees, sobbing in relief and guilt. David clutched his face, trembling. Anna picked up the journal, staring at the page that had doomed Chloe. For a time, the watcher leaned lower, looming over her like a tower. Its hollow gaze pinned her to the earth. She trembled, but stood firm, whispering, "Take me. Just let them go." The forest exhaled, a long sigh of satisfaction. The shadows surged, and then Chloe was gone. Not torn apart, not screaming, just gone. The journal fell to the dirt, its pages fluttering open as if gasping for air. They left the clearing without looking back. None of them spoke Chloe's name. The journal Anna carried felt heavier than her whole pack, as if the words inside grew denser with every step. At first, the woods seemed calmer. The knocking had faded, the air thinned. Michael let out a shaky laugh, broken at the edges. "She saved us. We're going to make it." But Anna kept here. Then the compass spun again. The glimmer vanished. The forest pulled the world back. The wind picked up. Branches cracked above. The sky tore open as the canopy shifted, not by weather, but by something moving through it. Something taller than the trees themselves. Shadows twisted like snakes, and the air filled with a low hum, deep enough to rattle their teeth. Michael clutched his camera like a weapon. "We're not out. We're never getting out." "Don't say that," Anna snapped, but even her voice broke under the weight of the dark. The ground trembled. Then, between the trunks, the watcher appeared again, closer than before. Its frame impossibly tall, its limbs bending wrong. It leaned low, its hollow face, but it was too late. David's gaze locked with the watcher's. His body went rigid, his pupils dilating until his eyes were black voids. Slowly, his expression softened into a blank, dreamlike calm. He turned, walked toward the oak shadows, and vanished between the trees without resistance. Michael screamed his name, but no sound carried. The forest swallowed it. Now there were two. The watcher shifted closer. Anna could feel it. Not footsteps, but pressure, like the gravity of a world bending around them. Michael dropped to his knees, tears streaking his face. "Take me. Just take me. I can't keep running." Anna shook her head violently. "No, don't give it what it wants." But Michael was already crawling forward, camera clutched to his chest. The watcher bent down, shadows curling around him like vines. In a blink, he was gone too. The camera hit the earth, lens cracked, red light still but it was too late. David's gaze locked with the watchers. His body went rigid, his pupils dilating until his eyes were black voids. Slowly, his expression softened into a blank, dreamlike calm. He turned, walked toward the oak shadows, and vanished between the trees without resistance. Michael screamed his name, but no sound carried. The forest swallowed it. Now there were two. Anna stood alone. Her chest heaved, every nerve screaming to run. The forest held its breath. The watcher waited. Then she remembered May Weaver's words from the ranger's journals. It kills with sight. Slowly, Anna closed her eyes. She turned, not looking, not daring, and stumbled through the dark. She walked backward at times, half blind, tripping over roots, whispering to herself, "Don't look, don't look, don't look." Branches tore at her arms, mud sucked at her boots, but she kept moving. The air shifted, the smell of asphalt, of oil, faint, but when she opened her eyes again, she stood at the edge of the road. The van sat crooked where they'd left it days ago. The highway stretched beyond, gray and cracked, but human, real. Anna collapsed to her knees, sobbing. She was alive. But when she looked down at her hands, the skin was pale, almost gray. Veins blackened, as though ink ran through them. And when she lifted her eyes to the van's side mirror, her reflection stared back. Her face, but wrong. In the center of each pupil was a tiny carved circle with an eye inside. The watcher had marked her. 2 weeks later, hikers found a damaged camera deep in Coldwater forest. The footage showed 4 friends laughing on the first day, setting up camp, joking around the fire. The video ended with a shaky shot of trees. Just before it cut to static, something tall stood in the distance, its pale eyes glowing through the canopy. And in the audio, faint but certain, a voice whispered, "We are still watching."